Hogstye.
Hey everybody out there in Hogstye Land, how are you all doing this evening? This is Alex, your host with the most, coming at you with the latest episode of the Hogstye. That made Steve cringe.
Oh my god.
I think that's a Beetlejuice reference that, you know.
It sounded like a combination of Alex trying to do a farm accent and like WKRP or something.
There is a little bit of
That was
WKRP, you know.
Yeah.
I was left speechless. I tell you that much.
I don't get Jamal. You never use your camera, so I didn't get your visual reaction. Steve looked like I just farted in the room.
Well, I was sitting here. My dog always comes over me when I'm doing this show for whatever reason, and as I'm petting her, my eyes just get a little bit wider. I'm like, hold up, what?
Sorry, everybody. I'm on goofy pills today. I guess I'm not. But it's just, you guys all know, I've been going through some weird stuff the last few days, so I'm a little off. Welcome to the show. Guys, good to see you. We have a lot to talk about, so we're gonna dive in fairly quickly. Most of the show's going to be Cardinals, but there's some quick hits that we should mention around the Washington football team that we should get out of the way first. Let's start with congratulations to Ryan Kerrigan. He got his first ever Defensive Player of the Week award. Deserved it for last week's performance. It was 2 sacks, fumble recovery, and like 187 QB pressures on 22 plays or something like that. He had a great performance, so he deserved it. I'm shocked it took this long. The second hit that we want to mention, post game, I'm sure you all saw this on Twitter. The former Philadelphia Eagles, and I guess he was also with the Browns at one point. Was the team president, was crying about how Washington fans were acting on Twitter after beating the Eagles in a comeback.
That is just so rich. Can you believe that? Just the obnoxious and arrogance of
anyone from Philly like accusing anybody else of bad sportsmanship?
It's truly, I don't even know the great analogy for it. I was trying to come up with some good, but the Eagles fans, I mean, come on, they're the worst fans in the world.
They are.
You know, it's like looking in the mirror and trying to punch yourself. You know, that's what he did.
Yeah.
Yeah, that wasn't a good look. I got words on that, but you know what I'm saying. It was pretty ironic, the person I was talking and the team that he represents.
I really thought he wanted to fight me. You know, it was almost kind of like he was trying to pick a fight with somebody. It's like, are you going to show up on my front door and start swinging or what? If you do, I'm going to shoot you. I'm not going to swing. First of all, I'm going to shoot you in the face. But that was just unbelievably stupid.
It really was. It was the saddest. And also, you know, like, how many times have the Eagles beat the Redskins, and you see the same thing from their fans? Like, this is what being a fan is.
Far worse. Are you kidding me? You know, it's the city of, you know, batteries thrown at Santa Claus and people throwing up on kids intentionally because they were in the wrong jerseys and beating people up in the parking lot. And, you know, it's just crazy. The Veterans Stadium had a court in the basement, okay? That's all that needs to be said about that.
A jail cells and a courtroom.
Yeah, they had a judge you're going to get arraigned right there.
Okay, so the last quick hit. Dan Snyder put out, I believe it was in the New York Times. It was one of those.
No, it was, I think, the Wall Street Journal.
Yeah, one of those New York papers.
Yeah.
Which.
One of the Times.
Well, okay, so he put out there that they're thinking if the name gets popular, they might keep Washington football team as the name, which I think is a terrible idea. I put out a poll on our Twitter just kind of gauge where fans are on Twitter about this. And landslide victory for people like me who think that we should actually have a real name and mascot and not be Washington football team. 71% to 28% people want to actually have a mascot.
I mean, number one, the only name that's going to be acceptable to me is Redskins, and I'm never going to buy any of this new merchandise or anything. I just am not. If it has to change,
oh my goodness,
the Washington football team name sounds too much like a soccer team, and I don't like it. I mean, with the caveat that I will never support another name, I would rather there be another name than
this
Washington football team.
Yeah, of course. And I think there's a lot of people in your boat, and I understand that too. But I just thought I'd put out there. We did a poll, didn't get a ton of votes, 200 votes, but like I said, 71.5% want to change it to something as a real name, and only 28% want to keep it. So,
and also,
by
the way,
he was just floating it out there for. Yeah. I don't even know. Like, he just wanted to put it in the headlines. I'm at this point, I'm pretty sure he's paying attention to the reactions of the organization versus like when Bruce was running things, or this 10-year time period where they clearly didn't care or was oblivious. But I think he was just focused. Yeah. There's different way you can continue without a mascot or without something that people can really get behind. Football team isn't. We are under the impression that it's
right, and also, Steve, you and I have also complained about how everything keeps listing them as football team instead of Washington.
Oh God, that's just
the worst.
Yeah,
it's so stupid. Like,
hey, our buddy No One's thing that keep calling him the team drives me even more crazy, and he works for us.
Well, I still think the team is better than football team, but we've had that discussion, you and I, and we can agree to disagree there.
Yeah, but listen, I mean, as Jamal said, this is just Dan Snyder just babbling. It doesn't mean anything. It's like Donald Trump getting up and talking about, all sorts of stuff that doesn't matter. This is Dan Snyder doing the same thing.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me. Dan Snyder's kind of that way, always been that way.
Yeah.
All right, guys, let's move on because we really should talk about this game coming up because it's going to be a battle of undefeated teams in Week 2, and that's exciting.
That.
No one would have thought that. I think if you had asked, 100 people, hey, these two teams will be 0-1, 1-1, or 2-0, I don't think a lot of people would pick 2-0,
Hey, it's funny as I looked at the because I do our written game preview every week, and for those of you who don't know, it's a lot of work.
Yeah, you do. You've always put a lot of work in that.
Well, the first 2 weeks are my favorite because there's no stats yet, so I just throw the last year's stats, and it cuts out a lot of work. But anyway, so I looked just tonight, right before the show, at the TV broadcast map for this coming week's games, and this game, Washington and Arizona, is literally shown only in Arizona and Washington.
Really?
That's and this is the first battle of the Titans, man. This is the first place versus first place.
See, I would,
come on.
I think this one's going to be a fun one to watch. That's the weird thing. I mean, okay, let's get into it. Because our defense is how we're dominating everything this year. I want to start with our defense versus their offense. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So I went and watched the film or rewatched the taped recording or online of Arizona.
I was about to say shout out to NFL Game Pass because they took their precious time getting
all 22
film.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, we haven't been able to watch it thanks to them. It usually comes out either Monday night, Tuesday morning, and it's it's Wednesday now, and none of us have been able to watch it.
Yeah, apparently Alex said that it was out, or that you believe it may be out.
Yeah, because I just watch condensed film. I don't watch the all 22 that often.
Yeah. But regardless, so Cardinals Offense.
So we'll be watching it after this show is released, basically.
Yeah. Right. All right, let's talk about this offense that they ran, beating up a very good defense in San Francisco last week. A lot of people, if you look at the numbers, you're going to think, oh, it's Murray and their running back kind of doing a lot of RPO and read option kind of stuff. But when I was watching the film, that's what I was looking for, and that wasn't the case, guys. I don't know if you had a chance to watch any of it yet, but most of the yards Murray got on the ground were him escaping the pocket and running. It's like old school Michael Vick, Donovan McNabb type play, not Robert Griffin type stuff.
Okay, so let me tell y'all why Kyler Murray's a better quarterback than Dwayne Haskins, because I think he is. Sorry to tell you, but I got to be honest. First of all, the Cardinals run a different offense, okay? They do not run a normal pro-style offense. This is Cliff Kingsbury bringing in the Texas Tech offense, and what it is, it's a spread thing, obviously, but it's a lot of very quick hits, and the quarterback getting on the move, rolling out, moving around, very quick. He's not going to do 7-step drop, launch the ball 50 yards downfield to DeAndre Hopkins. And why I think Kyler Murray is actually, this is not to say that it can't change, but I think Kyler Murray is a better quarterback than Dwayne Haskins right now, particularly for this offense, because Murray is confident, he has a quick release, and he knows exactly what he's doing. He's a short dude. He does have limitations, but moving him around helps with that because he's not stuck behind 6'5", offensive linemen. But if you watch him, he's decisive, and the ball comes out quickly, and he's confident. And I just don't see that all the time out of Dwayne Haskins yet. And so for Murray, my thoughts on him, because he had like 91 yards rushing last week, and that is a big problem. I don't think this is a very good matchup for Washington, to be honest, because they got in Carson Wentz's head last week because they put a ton of pressure on. They blitzed him relentlessly. They got a lot of penetration. But what do you do with a mobile quarterback? You're not going to blitz him all that much. Ron Rivera talked about it in his presser. You want to contain him in the pocket. That means keep the linebackers home. You're not going to necessarily run a bunch of weird exotic blitzes because you want to keep him in the pocket. And so I don't know if that really plays well with our offense or not. So that's my initial thoughts.
I agree. And, I think you kind of hit a very good point as to what they kind of designed. The one thing that I took away from their passing game right away, they don't throw downfield at all. I mean, they threw, I think, 2 deep attempts to Kirk, and both were big, wide misses. Everything is a screen pass or 5 yards, So if there's something that can be saved, it's you can kind of contain that passing game, with some shells and things like that.
It's easier said than done, though. Washington's never been good at that historically.
Yes.
For me, I kind of think first thing is I would defer to you all in terms of what you guys saw in Kyler Murray and the Cardinals for Week 1. I haven't seen it. Like, again, Game Pass pissed me off, so I haven't seen anything.
I watched the condensed version too.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything. I'm being completely honest with you, but what I will say is, based off what I know about Kyler and just the offense in general, seeing the brief NFL highlights. I mean, when you look at like what they're trying to do there, Larry Fitzgerald is still there. You have the DeAndre Hopkins, who obviously we know who he is. There's nothing like he's an all-around player. He can beat you on all 3 levels. And it just sometimes, depending on what day it is, he's unguardable. You can't. It's hard to check him. No matter what you do. Those are just. It depends on the day. And then you add in like the versatility he has in the backfield on top of like his versatility as a thrower and a runner. Like, he is not a guy who he's not running to run. He's running to throw. But if he has to take off, I mean, it is what it is. That's what he'll do. So, excuse me. So with that being said, one of the issues that, we'll be facing this week, that's going to be a big challenge that we didn't really see with Carson, is that, Kyler is a guy who will scramble and be a little bit way more lethal than you get with Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz is a guy who can evade, but he's not always going to, take off and go downfield and run and gain some yards. He's more comfortable in the pocket than Kyler is. So that I feel like that's one of the things that we really have to take account for, because if you're not able to contain Kyler, then that offense is going to be able to stay on the field for long periods of time, and that's obviously not good.
Well, and I think that's a fair point. Now, Steve, you and I kind of both watch the same thing here. My takeaway on how you contain him, it's not so much the ends and him running outside. He's kind of waiting for the inside guys to make a mistake. His big runs always came when the defensive tackles fell down,
He did the same thing in college.
Yeah.
It's the same way he played. Same offense, in some respects. Yeah, no, that's true. He's not looking for the edge most of the time. This is all the more important why you want the linebackers to stay home, because you cannot leave him lanes like that. Because if you do, he's he's fast, he's elusive, he's so small that he's hard to hit and hard to see. I don't believe for a minute that dude is 5'10".
No,
if he's 5'10", I'm 6 feet tall. Yeah, he's 5'8", right. Because he looks like a shrimp. But that helps him when you're running the ball. You know. So that's Kyler. Jamal touched on DeAndre Hopkins. Listen, this guy's a nightmare for this secondary in particular. Who on earth do the Redskins have that can cover DeAndre Hopkins one-on-one? Nobody. And they ran a lot of cover one last week. Because like Jamal, I think we were talking about the long touchdown against the Eagles. Was that cover one and cover three? I didn't go back and watch I saw some clips.
3rd and 22.
Yeah, I think it actually was a cover.
I'm pretty
one,
sure it was.
Not a cover three. Yeah. But anyway, who on earth, are they going to put Kendall Fuller on him?
No.
I mean, Ronald Darby, they don't have anybody, and so they're not going to be able to run that cover one. They're going to have to slide a safety to him. What does that do? That leaves Larry Fitzgerald, Mr. Hall of Famer. It is a serious, serious problem that I don't know there is a great answer.
And again, let's not sleep on their third receiver, Christian Kirk, who's, he's their deep threat, really, more than those guys at this point. Like,
it's a problem,
That's another matchup nightmare. And like I said, last week, the saving grace would, looks like that Murray might have some issues getting the ball deep accurately. But
I don't know if he's going to have to do that.
No, he probably won't.
Is the problem.
They run, it's a spread offense, like you said, but it's very much a West Coast short dink and dunk passing game. That's kind of what they did to beat San Francisco.
Just in support of your point, Alex, I'm sorry, Jamal, but they were ranked 26th last week in yards per play, 6.3 yards per play, very short, and that's because of this passing game. But sorry, Jamal, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I think the context that we're not inserting into this conversation is it actually is the same case that we'll have this week. Is when you look at San Francisco, when you look at their defense, like what is the first thing that comes to mind?
Joey Bosa.
Yeah, the front four.
Pass rush.
Nick. Is it Nick?
Sorry, Nick Bosa.
One of the Bosas.
I was confused myself. One of the Bosas. So the defensive line is where all the pressure. Where all the pressure comes from. And it's pretty dominant. And Nick Bosa is basically that guy. We're going into the same situation where Chase Young is that guy for our defense or for the Washington football team's defense. And you just have a bunch of people around him who make the unit that much better. You're going to probably see the same situation in terms of how quick they want to get the ball out of his hands and what they want to do to control the pace of it versus allowing the defense to dictate the pace and how the game's going to go. With that being said, this is also a challenge for our defense. If you're going to be as dominant, they're not claiming it, they're just playing ball. But if you're going to be that dominant defense where, that 8 sacks wasn't a fluke, regardless of who was out there for the Eagles' offensive line. If you're going to go out there and play against this Cardinals offense, and they're going to try and get the short game up off you, you still need to find a way to get to the quarterback, whether it's sacks or pressures. Get him off his mark, get him off his throwing mark, and make sure that those running lanes in between the tackles are not there for Kyler Murray to take off.
Well, I mean, you make a good point in that the 49ers, in some respects, are sort of the greater version of what Washington is now, and sort of how they approach the defensive front seven. So it stands to reason we're going to see something similar from the Cardinals.
I think so.
And also, I think their offensive line is light years ahead of where Philadelphia's was last week. It should not go unsaid that Philadelphia's offensive line was not NFL worthy last week. I'm sorry for those of you who are like apologists for all this, but you had Kelsey and then a bunch of bums.
I will say this:
who was 100 years old?
I'm making the point for you.
I will say this: it's a better line. This ain't a great NFL offensive line that we're going against. They made a
but you throw a very mobile quarterback with a better offensive line. That does not equal 8 sacks.
It helps even it out, but they made a lot of holding penalties last week. They let a lot of guys get shots in towards Murray, especially early on. This line is not like that. Might be their weakest spot on the Cardinals' offense. So
Yeah, it's not the
Wait,
Hogs.
do we have
Don't get me
numbers?
wrong.
Do we have some numbers for the Cardinals? Their
What
offense
kind of
right now.
numbers you want? Yeah, I've got a few. I mean, again, they don't. The numbers don't mean a whole heck of a lot after one game, but they gave up. Let's see. Offense gained 470 yards last week, 5.3 yards per play. By the way, that 6.3 was defense. So when I said 6.3 earlier, I meant I was looking at the wrong stat. They were at 5.3 yards per play, which is 19th. 230 passing yards, 180 rushing yards, 5 yards per carry.
Mm-hmm.
So 5.3 yards per play is even shorter. But the key here
now the 5 yards per carry is all Kyler Murray.
Well, it's not all Kyler Murray.
It's a lot of Kyler Murray.
It's a lot of Kyler Murray. But Chase Edmonds, gained some yards. Kenyon Drake has talent.
Okay, I'm looking now. So again, everybody who's listening, you guys know I haven't watched anything, but Edmonds only had a 20-yard run.
Yeah.
One run of 20 yards. He had 6 carries for 26 yards. So that boosted his average to 6 yards a carry. And then you had Kenyon Drake, the guy that I do truly respect as a running back and a talent. But 3.8 yards per carry, which is not bad. It's average. 3.8 is fine. But yeah, it really is the Kyler Murray show on the ground. And shoot, yeah, that's really it. I mean, Kenyon Drake, obviously you gotta respect him, but Chase Edmonds, I'm not too sure about him. But it was a boost in terms of the average going up. A lot to do with Kyler Murray.
No doubt about that, but I do, like you, respect Kenyon Drake, and this team
penalties. Trying to find that. Go ahead.
This team has made average to above average running backs look like superheroes in years past. Hopefully, it's different this year. We'll see. I just don't think this is a very good matchup. It's going
to be a tough matchup.
It really is tough.
No doubt.
Yeah,
no doubt. All right,
because just our secondary doesn't match up well with them. Our advantage with the blitz doesn't quite fit as well as it did against a less mobile guy like Carson Wentz. There's huge problems in the secondary. I don't like this.
I'm not loving it either. The one saving grace is I don't think of Arizona of having a great tight end, so that helps.
Yeah, Max Williams is not.
Yeah,
Zach Ertz.
Okay, guys, we got to switch to our defense, our offense versus their defense. So just thinking as to what I saw, and you guys can tell me if I'm crazy or not. San Francisco, Garoppolo either was having a bad game when it came to looking for the deep ball, or Arizona's secondary was just blanketing their receivers. I'm not sure. I couldn't tell which because I wasn't watching all 22. I was watching just condensed film.
Yeah, it's tough. Well, I mean, don't forget who Arizona puts back there in their secondary.
They have some good games.
They happen to have probably the best corner in football. And Patrick Peterson, Drake Kirkpatrick is not, a slouch either. What worries me much more about the Cardinals' defense is Chandler Jones. Chandler Jones, classic 3-4 outside linebacker. They move him around, and you'll see him on both edges. Occasionally, he's inside. What ought to give everybody nightmares is the thought of Jerron Christian versus Chandler Jones protecting Dwayne Haskins' blind side. That is not something favorable for Washington. Okay, that scares me all by itself. And they have other guys there that are good. I think they have a decent front seven here. Washington is never going to win a lot of games unless they figure out how to have their offensive line be decent. I don't know how you do that. I mean, Wes Martin looked like he was on roller skates last week. They were lucky that the defense dominated last week. So I just don't know if they can do that again this week with such a talent up front and Patrick Peterson in the backfield. It's another tough matchup I don't like.
For me, you mentioned Chandler Jones. I think for me, I'm sitting here looking at the numbers, but I think Buda Baker was he was the Pro Bowler. I want to say he got the Pro Bowl bid last year, which was something unique to a degree because he was I can't remember what it was that he was the first to do, or he was like among like a few to do as a rookie. I can't remember.
I'll tell
but
you
anyway,
here in a minute. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. But yeah, Buda Baker is something that
he did make he was a Pro Bowler last year.
Yeah, even when I thought last week I thought that the safety Rodney McLeod and the middle linebacker would be something that would be a challenge for Dwayne Haskins. I think that it would apply this week as well, but at the same time, it doesn't matter because Dwayne Haskins' issue is actually beating himself. And I say that to say Haskins had opportunities. Now, because a lot of people don't understand nuance in the conversation, I will just distinguish, yes, the offensive line was not good. Then I will say Haskins had opportunities in the game where he saw some items, he saw some things on the field, made the right reads, but the throws just weren't there. He had opportunities to extend drives, and he failed to do so. When those opportunities come for Haskins, he has to be able to help this offense out because now I understand the rust part too may play a factor. It is what it is, but he has to be able to help this offense out himself as well. And I think one of the things that I told you all, or maybe some friends, but before the Eagles game, it was always going to come down to the defense and Haskins. It was always going to be that aspect. And when you see it in real time, like the offensive line is no secret. We know it was bad. But what can Haskins do to overcome it? Now, we're not trying to put everything on his shoulders, but when you have a pass rush like the Eagles had, and then you're going into a unique situation like the Cardinals, who they had about 2 or 3 sacks. I don't know how many pressures, but it's not going to be that far-fetched from what the Eagles were able to do, even though what the Eagles got was it 2 or 3 sacks, around the same number. I say all this to say basically, it was 3. Yeah, I say all this to say it's going to come down to Haskins. There's not going to be much difference in between the amount of pressures that he gets and what they can do defensively. They have faster players, and I think that it does help. It does help when you have a lot of speed on defense on all levels. So it's going to be up to Haskins to make the plays. I just don't know what we'll be able to get just yet. I wish I could be something more.
I set up at top of the show that I thought Kyler Murray's a better quarterback than Haskins right now today. And it's, you kind of touched on the reasons, Jamal. I mean, Dwayne is not consistent. He's not as sharp and decisive all the time. He can be at times, but we did not really see that last week too much. We saw it sort of a little bit intermittently in the second half of the game. He has got to start putting it together. I mean, let me tell you, if we get through another 4 or 5 games like we had last week, there are going to be calls and questions about whether he's truly going to be the man around here. Because it'll be by that time it'll be like game 12, 13, 14 starts, and he's got to start getting it together. Because you're right. I mean, all this revolves around Dwayne Haskins.
It does, and
I think we'll see.
I think it revolves around him. It revolves around the O-line stepping up and improving their game from what we saw last week. But to me, the one key is going to be finding that guy who can be a reliable target over the middle for him, because that's probably the one spot Arizona struggled last week. Was covering guys who are kind of going down the middle, 10 yards, that kind of area. That's where they were getting exploited. So I don't know if that's Steve Sims kind of stepping up and running in there, or if that's the tight end getting in there, Logan Thomas.
Logan Thomas.
I'm still getting used to him.
I was gonna say what's funny is that I was literally about to say, I think this is a game where, and it's crazy how things turn out, because after week 1, everybody had their hot takes about Isaiah Simmons versus Chase Young in terms of like what could have happened in the draft. And I think this is this is a game where Isaiah Simmons can really take off because he's not going to be dealing with the the tight ends that San Francisco had. And like when you have that void in terms of coverage abilities and coverage responsibilities, it's going to make the game much easier for Simmons, and they can use him a little bit more in a more versatile way. And that's what I think that's what they're going to have to really look out for is trying to keep him away from the play, so to speak. So I mean, whatever that means, like, 'cause I'm still confused at what Scott Turner was actually trying to do. Like, I think we told you, like, it was a bit like he started off pretty weird, in terms of what he was really trying to get accomplished. But that's one of the things that's really going to be bothering me is how you can contain or keep Isaiah Simmons away from the actual play.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. I mean, I was one of the few on the Isaiah Simmons hype train in the offseason. He's a versatile guy. I don't think anybody really thought he was going to step in and be great from word one, just because he's so versatile that he sort of needs to carve out his role on the defense he joins. And and I think it's going to take him some time to do that. But his speed and his athleticism can be a real asset. And like you said, tight ends, I don't think he's afraid of what Logan Thomas brings.
No, I don't think
to
that.
the table.
But I'm just saying, like, that seems to be one of the few weak spots I saw last week.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I'm not disagreeing with you. I think so. Yeah. I think that's so. But who does Washington have to exploit that?
Right. We don't.
It's not Steven Sims breaking in a bunch of square in
Probably
routes,
not.
To get swallowed up by Isaiah Simmons or whoever. Dontrell Inman's an average receiver. AGG is just not there yet. That's kind of a problem. We all pointed it out last week and before last week. That's a problem.
I want to kind of see
speaking of
AGG get out there
receivers,
just to see what he has.
Yeah, are we going to touch on that topic of Odell Beckham and Allen Robinson?
I think you just did, Jamal.
Yeah,
so
why don't we wrap up with that, and then
piece?
we'll get into predictions and shut this thing up.
Well, all right, I'll be quick with mine.
Go.
Truth be told, I think I want to say it was you, Steve. You said on Twitter that you would avoid Odell.
Oh yeah.
Which, I mean, I'm not surprised. A lot of people feel the same way. But another thing though is this is me like having time to think about it. I'm all for Allen. I'm all for both receivers. Let me just be specific. For both receivers, like, we can use either one. Both of them are 27. Odell turns 28 in November.
Odell's only 27,
but
he feels older.
He's 27.
It's just yesterday, Alex. We were interviewing the Kicking Net about him.
Yeah, so like he's been in the league for a good amount of time. He was just young when he got in. But I say all this to say I would prefer Odell over Allen, because like when you get put in a situation now, when you go from Baker to Dwayne, it's debatable as to like the level of talent. Like, we don't know just yet how good Dwayne is, but we do know like this offense is new, but it's growing in a sense that they're trying to build an identity, and I think that you'll never get that in Cleveland with Odell. So it didn't look as good because they never had anything solid. But you have something here that's not solid yet, but it's forming, it's molding into something. And I think that Odell, given the type of caliber player he is, you can get away with him being, Odell. You can get away with him being Odell here because he's going to ball out on the field. I don't think you're going to be that worried about any other distractions outside of, just him playing football.
I think you guys know me well enough to know, meaning Alex and Jamal and the audience, that I am just naturally predisposed against divas and head cases and people who, have big attitudes. I just don't like that. And so the root of part of it, of my inclination to lean Robinson, is because Odell is like that. And, maybe Ron Rivera can handle it. Maybe he doesn't want to deal with it. I don't know. from a numbers and statistical perspective, Odell Beckham is light years ahead of Allen Robinson in every category. Sure. There's no doubt about that. Contract-wise is another factor. Odell is signed through 2023, I believe. Robinson is about to be free agent. So if you're going to make a trade like that, Robinson is going to have a much lower cost because he's not locked up. So it depends on if either one of them are actually available. And just because Allen Robinson is unhappy does not mean he's available. Say that also. But assuming they are available, there is a cost versus benefit analysis. What will it take to get Odell Beckham here versus what will it take to get Allen Robinson here? I think either one of them, I guess my natural bias against attitude aside, Beckham is the guy you want from an on-field perspective, but is the cost significantly more, too much, over what it will cost to get Robinson? That's the question to me.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, and I'm risk adverse to either of them because I want to build through the draft. So that's where I'm at still.
Hey, you know what? I mean, Robinson's still a pretty young dude.
They're both young.
Yeah, he could be here for 4 years. There's nothing magical about the draft. No. There's a certain team that resides in Washington, D.C. that traded away every first-round pick for a decade.
More.
Remember this? In the 80s? Yeah, more than that. Yeah, I mean, Bobby Beathard traded away the first-round pick for the Washington Redskins every year for more than 10 years. And it kind of worked out for him. There's nothing magical about the draft. The trick is finding the right youngish players that will fit and grow with your system. Sure. It doesn't have to be a draft pick.
I understand that,
I would give away a third-round draft pick in a blink of an eye for either one of those guys.
I understand that, too. All right, guys, we should wrap up. Let's do game predictions real quick. I can lead us off if you like, just to kind of get this thing going. I'm worried about this game. I think, we stated all the reasons to worry about this. I don't see this going well. I see this as like a 28-10 loss. So that's where I'm at.
Okay. Yeah, there's a lot of things going against them. The other thing that we didn't mention is that it's a road game. It's a long trip to the West Coast, which also doesn't go well.
Gotta dodge fireballs, the whole thing.
Yeah, I know. Who knows? Is the place going to burn down out there? There's a lot of fires going on.
Oh, Lord.
But anyway, yeah, I think this is a loss. I think I'm going to say, I think Arizona can put up points. I'm going to say 31-20.
Okay. Well, I think that the Washington football team wins.
You're sticking with your predictions, man.
I'm on brand with my prediction. Like so far, I ain't got no reason to switch it up. Not yet. I do think the football team wins. I think that it's around 24-16. I think that what we saw against again, I only seen the highlights, but at the same time, I know I can get enough from the highlights. With this part, I think that the Cardinals, although they had a great game in DeAndre Hopkins, I also feel like they weren't always like they capitalized on Jimmy Garoppolo's mistakes. If the football team if Washington can find a way to protect the football and stay out of the way of the Cardinals, just play their own brand, but just protect the football. They'll easily be in this game. I think that they'll be able to force a few turnovers, whether it's on Kyler or just general turnovers from another player on the offense. And it'll get them a couple more short fields this week, and I think they'll capitalize. Also think that Scott Turner, there is no way in hell that he'll come back this week with the same game plan that he had week one, whatever it was, whatever he was trying to get accomplished, and think that it'll be successful. I think he'll come back and it'll be a little bit more pointed in what he wants to do, understanding what Dwayne Haskins is best at.
Yeah.
So, 24-16.
Okay. I'm rooting for you to be right. I want to make one plea real fast before we sign off. If anybody out there knows of a way to stream these games that will keep me out of a sports bar for 16 weeks this fall, let me know. Tweet at us, DM us, something. Don't get yourself in trouble, but I do not want to spend 16 weeks in a sports bar. So please, somebody let me know how I can watch these games online. Thank you. That is my public service announcement.
All right, let's leave it there, guys. Thank you all for listening, and let's go Washington. And cut.